1897. That is the year George Tilliou opened Steeplechase Park on the Brooklyn waterfront and started the most extraordinary experiment in mass leisure in American history. Within a decade, Coney Island had 3 world-class amusement parks competing on the same stretch of beach, the most concentrated entertainment district on Earth. On summer weekends, 1 million people packed the boardwalk. The subway brought them for a nickel. The parks lit the night sky with more electric lights than most American cities had seen in their entire history. Then, one by one, the fires started. Then Robert Moses arrived. Then Fred Trump, the father of a future president, threw a demolition party, handed out bricks, and let the crowd smash what was left while bikini-clad models posed on the rubble. This is not just a story about an amusement park, it is a story about what New York City chose to destroy and who it let destroy it. George Tilliou did not just build a park, he patented a new kind of human experience. When he opened Steeplechase Park in 1897 on 15 acres of Brooklyn beachfront, he designed it to strip away Victorian restraint. Its centerpiece was a gravity-powered mechanical horse race, where riders clung to heavy wooden stallions on steep metal tracks. To seal the deal, Tilliou branded the gates with a massive, grinning icon known as the Funny Face, a wild-eyed caricature signaling to working-class visitors that they were leaving respectable society behind. But Tilliou's monopoly on Brooklyn's laughter lasted only 6 years. In May 1903, 2 showmen named Frederick Thompson and Elmer Dundee escalated the rivalry by opening Luna Park. On opening night, 60,000 people rushed through the gates in just 2 hours, stepping into a brilliant city of lights. Thompson and Dundee illuminated the grounds with 250,000 electric bulbs tracing 1,300 towers anchored by a soaring 200-foot electric tower. As trains approached the beach at night, passengers saw a glowing alien skyline rising from the ocean. Inside, Luna offered total sensory immersion, from a trip to the moon flight simulation and a reenactment of the Galveston flood to performing elephants. In its first season alone, Luna drew 4 million visitors. This massive success provoked William H. Reynolds, a former state senator and circus developer, to build Dreamland in May 1904. Spurred by pure rivalry, Reynolds spent $3.5 million to erect a competing 15-acre empire. Dreamland advertised 1 million lights, 4 times Luna's count, clinging to a 375-foot white tower that dominated the entire Brooklyn coastline. Reynolds designed Dreamland as a refined, classical white city with Venetian canals and grand ballrooms, but he still relied on raw sensation, staging real firemen rescuing actors from a burning 6-story hotel 12 times a day. From 1904 to 1911, these 3 parks competed on a single mile of beach, turning Coney Island into the undisputed capital of mass entertainment in the Western world. On July 28, 1907, a lit cigarette dropped at Steeplechase Park ignited a fire that burned George Tilliou's creation to the ground. Standing among the smoking ruins, Tilliou refused to yield. He erected a sign in the ash: "I have had more fun in Coney Island than any other man alive." Within 8 months, Tilliou raised capital and rebuilt, enclosing his attractions in a massive glass and steel pavilion of fun. 4 years later, Dreamland faced a far deadlier disaster. At 1 a.m. on May 27, 1911, the night before opening day, workers using hot tar to seal a leak at the Hellgate ride sparked a massive blaze. Dreamland burned to ashes in hours. Terrified lions escaped into the Brooklyn streets, and the famous one-armed animal trainer Cap Bonavita suffered severe burns while trying to rescue his menagerie. But William Reynolds chose not to rebuild. He took the insurance payout and abandoned the site. When Luna Park suffered a catastrophic fire in August 1944, leading to its final demolition in 1946, the structural divide was clear. Steeplechase endured because of Tilliou's tight financial discipline. The others vanished because their owners saw ruin as an exit strategy. In 1920, the extension of the subway system to the Brooklyn shoreline transformed the beachfront. The transit fare dropped to a single nickel, making the ocean immediately accessible to anyone with 5 cents. The beach itself was free, and seaside vendors competed fiercely on the price of hot dogs, ice cream, and cold drinks, keeping a full day of recreation cheap enough for the city's poorest families. By the 1930s, as the Great Depression devastated working-class neighborhoods, Coney Island became an essential civic refuge. On scorching summer weekends, daily crowds regularly topped 1 million people. The boardwalk was packed shoulder to shoulder with New Yorkers of every race, class, and immigrant background, mixing together in a democratic density that happened nowhere else in the city. During this era of mass public use, the rides became shared civic monuments rather than mere commercial novelties. The Wonder Wheel opened in 1920, a massive steel wheel carrying passenger cars high above the ocean. 7 years later, the Cyclone roller coaster debuted, offering cheap, terrifying thrills. After riding it, aviator Charles Lindbergh called the Cyclone the most thrilling thing in the world after flying. In 1941, the shoreline gained its towering crown when the 262-foot parachute jump arrived from the 1939 World's Fair. This vast democratic gathering space was the peak of the Nickel Empire. Long before post-war urban renewal projects began, Coney Island was a thriving, self-sustaining working-class institution, proving that the city's most valuable oceanfront could belong directly to the public. In 1934, Robert Moses became New York City Parks Commissioner and turned his focus to the Brooklyn shoreline. At first, his interventions looked like genuine progress. Moses widened the boardwalk, built modern bathhouses, and poured sand to secure the eroding beach. But these physical improvements masked a deeper hostility. Moses despised the commercial chaos of the parks, privately dismissing the diverse working-class crowds as riff-raff. In internal memos, he wrote that the beach should be a place for respectable families, not a carnival of the masses. He wanted a clean public beach rather than a carnival, planning an orderly, automobile-oriented park that would slowly starve the independent amusements. To achieve this, Moses used the machinery of the state. On August 30, 1949, the city designated the west end of Coney Island as a slum clearance zone under the federal Title I program. The designation had an immediate paralyzing effect. Realizing the city planned to seize and demolish their land, property owners stopped maintaining their buildings. Capital fled, repairs halted, and the resulting physical deterioration was then used by the city to justify more renewal. By 1954, a sweeping master plan threatened nearly every commercial establishment across a radius of 60 blocks, aiming to replace 60 blocks of amusements with parking lots and high-rise public housing. The former site of Luna Park became the prime target for this policy. Using federal Title I money, the city cleared the parcel under the guise of slum clearance, preparing the land for private residential development. Fred Trump acquired the site for his apartment projects. This selective use of federal power stood in sharp contrast to how the city treated other civic projects. While Brooklyn Dodgers owner Walter O'Malley was denied Title I land clearance for a new baseball stadium, the city readily deployed those same federal tools to turn the birthplace of the electric spectacle into private housing towers. The redevelopment logic taught the city to view Coney Island not as a democratic treasure to maintain, but as a problem to manage, clear, and sell. In 1964, real estate developer Fred Trump bought Steeplechase Park from Marie Tillieu for $2.3 million. His plan was to clear the oceanfront for luxury residential towers, a massive redevelopment project that required significant zoning changes from the city. He kept the park closed for the entire 1965 season, leaving the legendary venue silent while local preservationists and residents scrambled to secure landmark protection for the Pavilion of Fun. But Trump moved faster than the bureaucracy. On September 21, 1966, before protection could be granted, he staged a theatrical demolition party on the site. It was a publicity stunt of pure destruction. Bikini-clad models posed on the bulldozers while guests drank champagne. Trump handed his VIP guests bricks and invited them to hurl them through the stained glass panes of the iconic, smiling funny face. The mascot that had represented Coney Island's democratic spirit for generations was smashed as entertainment. This deliberate act of cultural removal sparked intense resistance from residents, preservationists, and city officials who saw it not as a standard real estate transaction, but as a profound cultural loss. Even Robert Moses opposed the residential plan, arguing that the land should remain open for public recreation. Ultimately, the gamble failed. Trump never secured the necessary zoning changes to build his luxury high-rises. The site lay vacant for years, a fenced-off scar on the Brooklyn shoreline, until the city bought the land back in 1979 for a mere $1 million. The parcel eventually became the site of a minor league baseball stadium, but the damage was already done. The demolition party had severed the physical link to Coney Island's golden era, proving that in the game of urban power, even the public's history was expendable. By the early 1970s, the grand playground of the working class had devolved into what city officials and police precincts classified as one of Brooklyn's most dangerous neighborhoods. The physical decay of the amusement zone mirrored a broader residential collapse. Arson, systemic abandonment, and chronic poverty swept through the streets. During the peak of the citywide arson crisis, the police department's arson strike force recorded 11 major structural fires in Coney Island in 1976 alone, representing over a quarter of all structural arsons in Brooklyn that year. When New York City plummeted toward bankruptcy in 1975, the municipal government withdrew essential public services from the shoreline. Street cleaning stopped, police patrols were cut, and park maintenance vanished, leaving the district to decay in real time. Coney Island's public image, once defined by joyous shoulder-to-shoulder crowds, was replaced by crime statistics and news reports of violence. Then came the land speculators. In 1978, developers like John Rogers and Samuel Klein proposed transforming the deteriorating beachfront into a massive casino and hotel complex. Anticipating a gambling boom, speculators bought up parcels of land, clearing away remaining rides and historic storefronts to prepare for construction. But the casino proposal faced fierce community resistance and ultimately collapsed under intense local opposition and a lack of financing. The casinos were never built, leaving behind a scarred shoreline of vacant, weed-choked lots where legendary attractions had stood for decades. The amusement district did not slowly fade with age. It was systematically dismantled by speculative greed, starved by municipal neglect, and abandoned by the city that once celebrated its existence. Coney Island today exists as an inventory of survivors and absences. The historic wooden tracks of the Cyclone still rattle under the weight of modern riders, and the Wonder Wheel still turns above the Atlantic shore. Both rides survived the demolition era, listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1979 and 1989. Nearby, the New York Aquarium, which relocated to the beachfront in 1957, sits adjacent to MCU Park, the home of the Brooklyn Cyclones, built on the footprint where the towers of Steeplechase once rose. In 2010, an entirely new corporate Luna Park opened on a portion of the old grounds, carrying the historic name but none of the original architecture. These fragments of survival only emphasize what is gone. The final tally of loss is staggering. Dreamland's 375-foot tower exists only in archival photographs, alongside the memories of wild lions roaming the streets of Brooklyn after the 1911 fire. The original Luna Park, with its 250,000 glowing bulbs and soaring electric tower, was cleared away for housing blocks. Steeplechase's grand glass and steel pavilion of fun is gone, and the iconic, grinning funny face mascot was smashed to pieces by wealthy guests at Fred Trump's demolition party. The physical destruction of wood and glass is only part of the loss. The real tragedy lies in the death of a radically democratic public culture. The era of the million-person summer days, fueled by a cheap nickel subway ride, has vanished. The total democracy of the beach, a free, open space where working-class New Yorkers of every race, immigrant background, and neighborhood mixed together without barrier, was starved by political hostility and real estate speculation. On the edge of the boardwalk stands the clearest symbol of this civic failure. Rising 262 feet above the ocean, the parachute jump still dominates the Brooklyn skyline. This massive steel lattice has carried no passengers since the gates closed in 1964. Though the city granted the tower landmark status in 1989, it was never restored to operation. Today, the steel structure is lit up at night, casting a quiet glow over the boardwalk, frozen and going nowhere. It remains the most accurate monument to Coney Island that could possibly exist, a towering marker of interrupted ambition, standing as a silent witness to the grand playground that New York City allowed to die. Today, the rusting skeleton of the parachute jump stands as a monument to a democratic playground we chose to sacrifice. Coney Island didn't just fade, it was systematically dismantled by power brokers who valued private profit over public wonder. As our shared spaces continue to shrink, we must ask, who decides what is expendable? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more.